Children, we will move on to the next topic now, how the British rule has made the Indians poor, and even after the independence, what were the major problems faced by the farmers in India which made them poor, and what are the major causes of poverty. So, these are the three topics that we are going to discuss in this video. Now, let us see how the British rule has made the Indians poor. You all have learned the reasons in the first few chapters, but we will recollect some of the points which made the Indians poor due to the British rule. Point number one, how the British rule made the Indians to be poor. Point number one, destroyed Indian industries. You know that Britishers destroyed our handicraft industries. Majority of the people became unemployed. Due to the unemployment, there is no income for the people, so people remain to be poor. As simple as that. You have learned it and you can recollect the points that you have learned in the first chapter. So, due to the destruction of industries, handicraft industries, they considered India as a supplier of raw materials and a market for their finished goods. So, they destroyed their industries in India. So, when the industries were destroyed, especially the handicraft industries and other industries, majority of the people lost their job. So, as a result, there is no income for the people, people became poor. Now, the next is more than 70% of the people were engaged in agriculture. People were engaged in agriculture. They were encouraged to produce cotton, indigo and other products which were useful for the Britishers to take to their mother country. The Indian farmers were forced to cultivate certain products which could be used as raw materials by the Britishers, and they also encouraged commercialization of agriculture. So, as a result, the prices of the food grains in India began to increase, and as a result, availability of the food grains that was in short. So, this caused for the poverty. People became poor. Hunger and starvation was the end result. So, point number two, more than 70% of the people were engaged in agriculture, and point number three, India was forced to export food grains, and Britishers emphasized on commercialization of agriculture. They encouraged commercialization of agriculture. Production of cash crops, food crops was discouraged, and production of cash crops was encouraged, such as rubber, jute, cotton, indigo, etc. So, this caused the farmers to remain poor, and they were not getting any benefit out of what they are cultivating. So, India was just considered as market for their raw materials. So, this made the farmers poor and poor. So, these were the adverse effects of the British rule, and this made Indians to be poor due to the British rule. Now, even after the independence, the farmers remained to be poor. Let us see what are the reasons for that. Even after the independence, land ceiling implemented by the government was not successful. You know, you have learned about land ceiling. Fixing of the land which has to be kept by each and every person is known as land ceiling. You have learned in chapter 2 regarding that. Even after the independence, the first measure which was taken by the government was to fix the amount of the land which has to be kept by each and every farmer. So, that was made by the government, and that was not successful in certain states. So, land ceiling implementation by the government was not successful. This again caused the farmers to become poor. Now, let us see why it was not successful. Large sections of agricultural workers couldn't manage their small holdings due to the lack of money. Land ceiling was implemented. The land was divided among the farmers, and certain amount of land was given to the farmers, but still, due to the lack of money and due to the lack of skill and knowledge, some of the farmers couldn't manage even the small holdings of land. So even the land ceiling was implemented by the government, it was not that successful for some farmers due to the lack of money and due to the lack of skill and knowledge. Then comes, for some farmers, land holdings were too small and not viable. For some farmers, for better off farmers, for poor farmers, even the small holdings was not manageable for them. For better off farmers, the small holdings was not enough for them to do the cultivation, and that was not viable for them. Point number 3, in some states they failed to implement this system properly. In some states this land ceiling was not implemented properly. So rich landlords, using some loopholes, they influenced the government and they tried to manage the large acres of land within them. So in some states this land ceiling was not that successful. So due to this reason, even after the independence, some of the farmers remained to be poor. Now point number 2. So point number 1 is land ceiling implementation was not successful. Point number 2, majority of small and marginal farmers have less fertile land and they dependent on rain. Majority of the small farmers, they didn't have their agricultural land was less fertile and they had to depend on rain. Now next is, they depend on subsistence farming rather than commercial farming. They also practiced, Indian farmers practiced subsistence farming rather than commercial farming. What is meant by subsistence farming? Subsistence farming means farming which is done only to satisfy the needs of the family. Commercial farming means the farming which is used to sell in the market. The crops produced will be sold out in the market. So instead of practicing the commercial farming, the farmers were encouraged to do subsistence farming. That is due to the lack of money, due to the lack of skill, knowledge, due to the lack of benefits from the government, etc. So as a result of it, as there is no marketable surplus for them to sell in the market, they could produce the products from the farm only for their own needs. So that again made them to remain poor because there is no additional income for them. Then comes the next one, fragmentation of land holdings. With the rapid growth of population explosion, per head availability of land for cultivation has steadily declined, which lead to further split up of land. So when the population went on increasing, there is no education given for the people regarding the family planning. So population go on increasing, it went on increasing. So what happened is that the land was again split up into different parts. So as a result, per availability of land for cultivation was steadily declining, which lead to again further split up of land. So income from the small holdings was not sufficient to meet the family requirements. This lead to distress among the farmers. Small holding of land and large members in the family. So this will not be enough to, this will not help them to carry their livelihood. So this created a distress among the farmers. So because of this, the farmers remain to be poor. So three major reasons. First is before the independence, during the British rule, what were the reasons for the Indian farmers to remain poor or Indian people to remain poor? They destroyed the industries. Majority of the people depend in agriculture. Then they were forced, Indians were forced to export food grains and engage in commercialization of agriculture. Then comes after the independence. After the independence, the land ceiling implementation was not successful in certain states. This caused for the farmers to remain poor. Then majority of the small and marginal farmers, they had to depend on subsistence farming and rain. Then fragmentation of land holdings due to population. These made the farmers to be poor. Now we are moving on to the main causes of poverty, the general causes of poverty. What are the general causes of poverty? Point number 1, population explosion. Population increases, one of the major reason for poverty. As the population increases, government cannot absorb these increasing population to the employment sector. So what happens? People remains to be unemployed. So population explosion can be one among the major reason for the poverty. So if the government is able to meet the increasing population in the employment sector, then the population growth will not be a problem. But if the government cannot meet the people increasing population to the employment sector, then it will definitely lead to poverty. Then comes the next one, low level of economic development. Still, India is facing backwardness in agricultural and industrial sector. So due to that, there is low level of economic development. So this low level of economic development is another cause of poverty. Then comes the next one, poor state of agricultural sector. In India, people in rural areas, at most rural areas, people are still practicing primitive methods of agriculture. So if primitive methods of agriculture is practiced, what will happen? Only a less yield will be available and more time will be taken. So as primitive methods are practiced, the end result is there is a poor state of agricultural sector. Yield is very less. So that poor state of agricultural sector is one among the reason for poverty. Next is high illiteracy rate. Due to high illiteracy rate, people are forced to take up low paid job. People lack knowledge and skill due to high illiteracy rate. There are so many states in India, especially in that most remote areas, people are lacking literacy. So due to that illiteracy, they are forced to take up low paid job. Most of them are casual laborers. Then comes high level of unemployment. High level of unemployment can again be connected to the fourth point, that is high illiteracy rate. Now, flow of people from rural to urban area is increasing. People can't find the job in the rural areas because in the rural area, you know, the problem of disguised unemployment is there. So people, to get rid of that, they will be moving on to the urban areas. So population of urban areas increases, slums increases. Again, the state of poverty is the end result. Now, when the people from rural area move to the urban areas, industrialization is not able to absorb all these people. This results in casual laborers with no job security and other facilities. Just now I explained, when these excess people from the rural area, due to the disguised unemployment in the agricultural sector, when they move to the urban areas, in the urban areas, industries cannot absorb all these workers. Therefore, number of casual laborers will be more in the urban areas. They will not be having any job security. They live in the slum areas, no proper sanitation, health facilities. This state is known as a state of poverty, another major reason for poverty. Then comes the next one is high level of indebtedness. When the people cannot earn their livelihood, they will start borrowing money as a main source of their livelihood. So when they borrow money, they will be borrowing it at a very high rate of interest. They will not be able to repay the amount. They will be always in a debt trap. Then comes the next one, inflation. High increase in the price that will affect the poor people. They will not be able to meet their necessities. Rich people are not affected because they always aims for luxuries and comforts. But whereas the poor people, to meet their necessities, if the prices are very high, they will find it very difficult. So hunger and starvation will be the net result. So inflation or rise in the prices, another reason for the poverty. Then comes the last one, inequalities of income. The division of the society into rich and poor is another major reason for poverty. Rich remains to be rich and poor remains to be poor. So these are the major causes of poverty. So causes of poverty are population explosion, low level of economic development due to backwardness in agricultural and industrial sector, poor state of agricultural sector due to primitive methods of agriculture, high illiteracy rate, high level of unemployment, then high level of indebtedness, inflation and inequalities of income. So these are the major causes of poverty. So if there are causes of poverty, there should be measures to remove poverty. Government should take initiative to remove poverty, because poverty is a major issue faced by Indian economy. Thank you.